I love this interview. She is a wealth of knowledge. She is giddy and hilarious. You will absolutely love where this woman started, how she made her transition, where she ended up before she retired, which is such a blessing to be able to do in this business.
I know, right? She had an extraordinary life, and because she had an extraordinary life, I got to have an extraordinary life as well. So I'm going to count my blessings, and you guys can listen to our conversation with my mother, Judith Alexander Corey.
Welcome back to the No NDB podcast. Today with us, as Karen has said, we have Judith Alexander Corey, legendary hairstylist to the film and television industry. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
So we have just a couple of questions about you early on in your life. Where did you find, or how did you find the film and television industry?
I grew up with it, literally. I had a lot of family members in the business. I hung around at studios since I was about 3 or 4 years old, and it was just natural for me to want to end up there.
Isn't that amazing? A family business.
Family business.
That's absolutely awesome.
I think it was called nepotism.
You grew up in the industry very much like I did.
So yeah, it was old hat by the time you were knee high to a teacup.
Yes, I worked as an extra as a kid, and then just kept hanging around. I worked on the first 13 Bonanza shows, but as a PA.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
In the office.
In the office, we were called Girl Fridays at that time.
I love the term that they came up with. Because what were the other opportunities there?
There weren't a lot of opportunities for women in the film business.
So how many
other
were
than
there?
actresses.
Okay.
Well, if you wanted to work on a crew, you could be a script supervisor. You could be a costume designer or costumer or hairdresser. You couldn't even be a makeup artist.
Because that was a male profession. Where
That's right.
The Jack Pierce days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there weren't a lot of jobs that you could do. Now I think you can work in every craft there is.
And they do.
And they should.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took us a while to get there.
It did take a while to get there.
Yes.
So you were in the office doing Bonanza and then kept going on that train. Once you got on, you just kept chugging along.
Kinda. I actually got fired from that job. So I had to go to beauty school. That's where I had decided to end up. Hairdresser to the stars.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. And so when you, how old were you when you met your first husband?
Oh, very young.
Oh, yeah?
Like 16, 17.
And
But, that was the way. If you got out of high school without being engaged, you were going to be a spinster.
no, you had to fill your dance card and fill it up quickly.
That's right.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so then you started a family, still working on the lot, and tell me a little bit about that time in your life.
Well, it was a whole different system at the studios in those days. And it took me about 5 years to get all my hours, is what they were called then. And I never knew when I was going to get a call. I get a call from the union when the list was empty. And I might have to go to work the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So the union will call and let you know what jobs were, because they went through the unions to hire, correct? As opposed to now where
It
people
used to
hire
be a
you.
hiring hall, and now, yeah.
Yeah, it was a hiring hall. You're right, absolutely. And so, it was difficult, and I probably was so lucky to have my mother and my sister were kind of always on call for me. which was very fortunate because I never knew when I was going to get a call.
And you had to go because for 706 you have to have 30 days on a union show, but you can't work on a union show
Unless you get the call.
unless you're in the union. So you had to have the list all the way down and somebody willing to hire you to get your 30 days. It sounds like not very much, right? 30 days is nothing compared to what they have to do now, it feels like. But those 30 days are not easy to get.
I don't think it was ever built or designed to be easy to
No,
get. And
I think it was deliberately not built. I mean, so that you could easily get in at that time.
I think that is part.
And it's probably true now.
I don't think
Still.
much has changed in that playbook, but
Although I think they have to have a lot more days, don't they?
Not for 706, I don't believe. 798, it's different how they do their days. You have to have so many per year for like 4 years or something. I don't know. It's or so many days within a certain amount of time. I don't know. Because it's been a while since I had to do it. So, yeah.
But Karen, I think we had to bring her out on location so they couldn't fly her home.
well,
I did. I had to fly to Eureka, California. And once I got there, they just kept me on.
well, isn't that a wonderful thing? I mean, what a way to do family, right?
That's right.
I mean, nepotism, I know people don't love it, but I do. I was in Scotland when I got the call that I was going to be working in Eureka. So I had to get home from Scotland.
Because she couldn't turn down that call.
No.
No, you can't turn down that call.
The list was down and they had the opportunity to hire me. So my mom called in a lot of favors and they had to hold me for 30 days. So
Well,
they chose to hold me for
it
30
took
days.
it took me a lot longer to get my 30 days.
Yeah.
And I worked on a lot of different shows. First show I worked on was called Wagon Train, which anybody listening to this may not even know what that show was.
It was around right before or right after The Rifleman.
You're probably right.
The Rifleman was still black and white, though, right?
Right.
Yeah, I know you weren't watching that.
No, I think I've seen reruns. I love Turner Classic Movies, of course.
Yes.
They're great.
Absolutely.
You know, then I moved on to big things like Petticoat Junction. I had to do 2 Indian wigs on that show, and I didn't know how, but I told them I did. And then the stuntman helped me put the wigs on.
So they wouldn't fall off when they hit the
And
ground.
you learned real quick.
I learned right on the
No one
job.
had to show you twice?
No,
Well, then,
I learned on the job.
on-the-job training, I think, is the best product.
Baptism by fire.
Absolutely.
What was it like being a part of the studio system, working at Universal for their hair and makeup department? You talked about the red doors on the hill. What is that?
That was the makeup department. When I first started working at Universal, we were down near the commissary.
the hair
and
department.
The hair department. Well, it was called the makeup department.
Yeah.
Well, hairdressers didn't get a big
Yeah.
boost. But, and it was where it turned out to end up being editing.
Okay.
So it's a long strip of rooms
Yes.
down there. And then they built this magnificent temple up on the hill that was the makeup department. And it had,
Red doors.
and you had to walk up the big hill to get to the makeup department through the red doors. It was fabulous. It was a big deal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The mysticism of the moment.
And of course, the hairdressers then, we had to wear dresses and high heels. So going up that hill was sometimes a
But
challenge.
the makeup artist would wear suit and tie, or at least
Absolutely,
tie
a
and
tie
lab
and
coat.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The only break you got was if you worked on the back lot.
Which is now, I think, gone, right?
No, it's a tour.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much the tour, the New York streets and stuff like that, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're still utilizing those locations today, which that's got to be interesting to still see after all these years.
Yeah, they went clear, the back lot went back of stage 40 to what's the street that Warner Brothers is on?
Burbank?
No,
The other one. I don't know. Buena Vista?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was too long ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a big parking lot now
Yeah,
for
yes.
employees.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was Falls Lake. It was all kinds of stuff back there that we shot films and movies.
Now, tell me, at what point did you, or how old were your kids when you moved up to Valencia in that stage of your life, where you were?
I'm trying to think. Because I actually think we lived in Newhall when you were born.
Yes, but then we moved to the Valley.
And then we moved.
And then back
Then we were in the
Then my
valley.
parents got divorced, and then we moved back, and then we stayed with my grandparents for a while because that's where we were during the '72 earthquake. I'm dating myself.
Hey, that's the way. That is the way.
My parents lived in Placerita Canyon, which was just down the road from Disney Ranch, where we used to go out and film sometimes in the countryside.
Yeah, you were
At
telling
that
me.
point, now, it's all built up.
Yeah.
It's totally different now, but those were our locations,
Mhm.
We would either go to Westlake, which was, or we would go to
Melody Ranch?
Melody Ranch was in Placerita Canyon also,
Yeah,
which
those,
belonged to Gene Autry.
right. And I forget which one has the iconic trees that are in every.
Golden Oak,
Yeah,
that
the-
was Disney's.
and
Yeah.
it's the original Buena Vista that I was filming there in 2007.
Oh, yeah.
and it
I
was
filmed.
still
They
there.
still work there. I'm sure they still
Out
work
at the
there.
ranch?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
you,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can tell that when they're like, it's in feudal Japan, and you're like, those are the same trees.
Yeah.
Or they had a covered bridge,
Don't touch the table.
and I used to see the covered bridge in
Everything.
commercials and different,
apple
when
dumpling
the
man
horses would
rides
ride
again.
through the covered bridge going one way, and then
they turn
the
around.
Indians would come through the other way or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so much fun.
I bet.
You can really see it on Country Bears. The Country Bear movie.
Uh-huh.
That's my sister. In case anyone's wondering who's speaking from the other side, that's Reva.
I know, but you had to know. If people want to see it, they got to go watch the
You
Country
have to
Bears
go
movie.
back
That's
and watch
funny.
the Country Bear
You see it
Jamboree.
in a lot. You saw it in Pee Wee Herman. The movie Pee Wee Herman movie was all done at Disney Ranch.
One of the first jobs that I had was with one of the Country Bear Jam, one of the original suit actors. He's
That's funny.
one of the first jobs that I had. Yeah.
That's a favorite of
Right.
Reva's, by the way. Is the Country Bear.
Oh, well, it is iconic.
There is a barn on Disney Ranch that I think has been burned thousands of times.
They just keep rebuilding
Just
it.
keep burning it down.
They're building it out of steel so that they can just repaint it and go again.
That's where they filmed a lot of We're Out Though with George Clooney. Was at Disney Ranch.
That's awesome.
Fun times.
And then now, about mid 70s, you started to break away from the studio system. From what I understand, that's very hard for people to do. And how did you navigate that?
Well, I was working at Universal, and I had just finished a project with Angie Dickinson. And she had asked me to go with her on a movie. And I didn't quite know what to do, so I went to my mentor, Larry Germain, who helped me so much. And I said, what do I do if there's two projects, the one here or somewhere else? And he said, a rule of thumb, always take the job that starts first.
Take the job you have.
Take the job you have.
And I said, that's really good. That's a good thing. Good advice. Larry, I'm going to go out of the studio and do a picture with Angie Dickinson.
Larry.
So when you Larry, I'm leaving. So when you go to do the picture with Angie, does that mean you're kind of a personal, or you go in and do it as a key, a department head, just a hairstylist on the show? How did that all work?
Well, since there was only one hairstylist on the show, I think I was a department head and a personal.
I'm not going to argue with you.
I did it all.
Okay.
But I got to go on location. I went off to Tucson.
Okay. And why was there only one hairdresser?
That's just the way we did things.
How many
Those
makeup
days.
artists were there?
Actually, there was probably one.
Oh,
Maybe
interesting.
two. Paul Stanhope was his name. I don't know if anybody recognizes his name,
Oh, I'm sure.
but he,
So did you guys do the entire
That's great.
cast?
yeah, pretty much.
One hair, one makeup.
Wow. Wow.
Like how far we come.
Producer's dream.
I used to do a TV show. I did 7 actors every morning.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
I don't think that's changed.
Well, we don't always do that many in the morning.
Sometimes we're waving to multiple appendages.
We also worked on the outside of Honeywag.
Yes, I've heard that story a lot. Whenever I complain about a trailer, well, you didn't have to stand on the outside of a honey wagon. And I'm like, I know.
Don't give these producers any ideas.
Now we'll be outside working at
They had mirrors that folded down, and we had, put our little
Just right
chairs
from the-
out there.
Yeah,
right up the wall. Right off the wall.
Genius.
It was. It was cold out there sometimes too. And the rain and the sun.
I understand, though. I
It was,
understand.
it wasn't all. I won't say it.
What?
That's great. That's
Okay.
You've
Okay.
heard that expression.
What? Hey!
No, I can't.
Oh, okay. All righty. I told you guys, Judy doesn't cuss.
great.
It's like when you put, who's going to hear this?
It's okay. It's okay.
So you found the success with the Angie Dickinson film, and then you never looked back, or you had to go back and
I
forth.
went back and forth,
Mhm.
and I worked at just about every studio,
Mm-hmm.
in and out.
And
then-
about how big was the union membership at that point? Hair and makeup artists.
I
the community.
think it was about around 700.
Yeah, it wasn't huge. Because I think it wasn't even huge when I got in.
I don't think it's ever been a big number.
798, I think, is much bigger than 706 as
Right.
far as member.
But I mean, to learn the ins and outs and the body politic of the group, that takes a couple years to begin to navigate, and then once your name is known and your stock is good, then
There probably wasn't that many, even if I think about it. Like at Universal, they probably had like 15 regular people that worked there all the
Crazy.
time, and that was guys in the lab and everything. And we also had apprentices.
Yeah, because
There was a period
you could apprentice to
where
get in.
you could apprentice. And like Universal had 2 apprentices at that time.
highly sought after.
And I was very lucky because when I was there, I got to work with the 2 apprentices. I got to learn
Oh, that is good.
with the 2 apprentices. And so that was,
Did you
that
run
was
into them later on in your career? Did that pay off for you? Or?
oh yeah, I mean,
Do you remember who they were?
yeah.
Who was it?
Ginger Hadfield
Uh-huh.
and Christine Lee.
Christine. Oh, Chris Lee.
Chris Lee.
Chris Lee. I remember Chris Lee. And also, when you went into 706, you were considered a trainee until you couldn't department head a show until you passed another test,
Until you pass your journeyman.
your journeyman test, and at that point you could department head and stuff. But until that point, you weren't supposed to be running departments.
Yeah, I was part of that final guard before
Yeah.
they started doing. Once you've been in the union for 5 years, you're just a journeyman.
That's
We
my
had
thing.
so much to learn. When if you go to a regular beauty school and you go and then you want to get in the motion picture business, there's so much stuff you need to learn as, or two or whatever
Just to
group
be
you're in, you know, we
capable of your job.
Well,
we used
still
regular
is.
old curling irons.
Marcel's is what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had stoves,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to learn how not to burn somebody's hair
Mm-hmm.
and curl it, and put on hair lace wigs, and you know
You
how
still
to
have
put
to
on
go through all
stunt
that.
wigs, how to put the pins in so they don't jam into the stuntman's head.
Yeah, they don't like that.
And what
No.
was for the entire crew base at that point? Now we're 10, 15 years in. What percentage of the crew base is now a woman in an emerging field at that time?
When did women start being able to be in the makeup department? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was, well, one of the first women was Christina Smith,
Yes.
and she got in because Liza insisted, pretty much.
Liza Minnelli.
Yeah,
Name drop.
yeah.
But do you remember when that was? It was before Cabaret.
And then what they did was they took the body makeup. We did have another crowd called body makeup.
Yeah.
And because the makeup men couldn't do anything below. So the body makeup girls did for women. And they did allow the body makeup girls to start
Women.
training and learning to become
Yeah.
makeup artists. Most of
I-
them already
And
were.
isn't that wonderful? It's like just be a makeup artist, but with extra steps.
Well, because body makeup artists there was a group of them, and they were very
Good.
specific, and they were very good at what they did. They were never trained to do beauty. So you back then, if you had to airbrush a whole group of people, it was all body makeup artists. It was no regular makeup artist doing it.
Well,
I think it was also a way to incorporate more women into the field of it, and then keep them in their specific category. So the men
Right.
still ruled the category,
still gatekeeping.
still gatekeeping a little bit. And then they decided that as films were going on, actresses were like, I want my body makeup artist and I want my makeup artist. And the producer's like, why can't they just do both?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is where that started going in, and they knew they had to incorporate them in, because there were some actors that were very loyal to their body makeup artist. I know one that traveled with her actress for years. She didn't go anywhere without her. So, I mean, if you're going to make your body look good, you want
If
the person
your
that
Oh,
body is on camera,
and they're in your very intimate areas and things and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember when they started, and you had to almost, I feel like when you were a body makeup artist, you remember Gina? Gina was a body makeup artist. You had to do certain things before they would allow you to move up into the makeup category. And I remember that. So it's not that long ago.
right. No,
I mean, it's long ago, but not that.
it's not 100 years ago. It's barely 70 years ago.
It's like 30 years ago.
That's
Well, the 80s, right? 40 years ago?
40
All of a sudden, I realized how long it's been since it was the 80s.
The early to mid 70s, moving away from the studio system into the world of independent film and finding the film tribe that you began to make film with.
My question was, what was the first movie that you were a department head on?
So it would have to be out of Universal because Larry was always the department head. That's something. We
Yeah.
never used to get film credit.
It was just a
The
department head
head
at the studio.
that got film credit until I did that Elvis Presley.
So what kind of credit did you get with the Andrew Dickinson?
I probably did get credit.
Did you get key hairstylist though, or did you get department head?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't
Tell me
remember.
about the Elvis movie, because that seems like a time where
That was fun. That was done at Universal, but it wasn't independent. But I got to work on it.
Clam Bake is the Elvis movie.
Yeah.
It's called Clam Bake. Yeah.
And we had Shelley Fabre. And
Now, is not that where Reva gets the name Michelle?
yes,
My sister's name is Reva Michelle, and she's named after Shelley Fabre.
that's right. It's hard being a mother.
Tell me about how hard it is being a mother.
My poor kids, I think they got cheated a lot.
I don't think we did.
But they always had good people taking care of them. And when I was gone, I really didn't go on location much when my kids were small.
Little.
There were a few things,
Yeah.
literally. I did some live TV stuff. I did some commercials.
Well, we used to go on location in the summer with you. We used to go places with you.
Yes.
Because I remember we had Debbie and we had those things. So you did do location.
I
Tell
I
me
remember
about-
she went to-
you got to tell me about Debbie.
Debbie, our babysitter,
I
Debbie.
feel like I need to know about Debbie.
Debbie was probably too young. But she was great with kids because she had
She lived across the
younger
street.
brothers, and she was fabulous. So she went as my my third child for a while, my fourth child, and she used to go on locations with us.
Can you imagine?
I
15,
can't,
you're
I
on
can't
the way.
imagine.
You're going. You're on your way. You're taking care
No,
of
Casey
kids.
and I have talked about it, like how not feasible that would be. Like, yeah, okay, we're just going to get another hotel room.
Yeah, that's what they did. That's what we would do in the summer.
Yeah, we at the Coronado Hotel down there.
Oh, yes,
I
in
worked
San
on
Diego?
a film down there.
Farewell, My Lovely with Sylvester. Is that the one? No,
No,
that was the other one. Sylvester Stallone. That was the one on the Queen Mary. I got to go.
yeah.
Very excited. I wore plaid pants.
Farewell, My Lovely was Robert Mitchum.
Okay.
Robert Mitchum.
Yeah.
Logan's Run.
No, Logan's Run. I went and that
She
was done
went
in
to
Dallas.
and she
I
went
was a
with
yellow.
me.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were.
I worked for a whole summer. Yes, we
That's the way, because how else am I going to spend time with my mom if I'm not ratting around like
Well,
she ratted
you know
around
what
when
was-
she was a young one, too?
On Logan's Run, what was perfect is the makeup man, Dick Kobos. His wife was a teacher, and she went with him, and she took care of Karen when Karen wasn't working.
Oh, that's
Oh,
awesome.
I did not know that. Very nice.
She took you all over the place.
I know, Mom, but I don't. I remember getting there, dressing, putting all my stuff on, and just going for it all day long. I remember the day that we ruined that big explosion shot. There was a shot. I don't know if you've seen the movie Logan's Run, when everything's falling apart and the whole world is ending and like things are falling and stuff. Well, they didn't tell the kids because they wanted us to have a real reaction.
Of course, they wanted to traumatize
They're like, this is going to be amazing. Let's just scare the shit out of them. And we all ran through. And then we got to the other side and we all ducked around the stairs to watch because we're like, oh my God, it's all falling down. So we literally, you see us in the background, just all standing there looking at it. Like 5 of us watching the world fall apart. So they had to reset the whole thing and do it again.
Oh, that's so good, because like they're like, we want a real reaction. Well, the real reaction is that these kids want to see.
Well,
this
and not
thing
only
blow
that,
up.
we're all like movie kids. So we know it's not real. So didn't work.
Did work.
To this day, I have to shout, "Don't smile! It's the apocalypse."
I ruined a great shot with Bill Tuttle, makeup artist.
Sure.
I did a couple of shows with him. But anyway, we were at the studio and it was Halloween. And Bill made me up
Do you remember
in
that?
all black and white and as a witch.
We won the
And
costume.
it was fabulous.
That's
Okay? But the next day in dailies,
That's when you dailies, or when you used to go somewhere and watch what you filmed the day before.
in the before time.
In the late 1900s, you used to go somewhere and watch dailies.
what we went at dailies, there I was in a mirror, in a reflection in the shot. Black and white. Oh my God.
What was the script
It
supervisor
was-
doing at that?
It wasn't great. It wasn't a good time.
So did it make it into the movie? Did you,
you
guys
know what? I
reshoot it?
don't know if they took it out or not.
What movie
I
was it?
don't
Do you
know
remember?
if they could do that in there.
I just want you to know that that's the year our family won the Halloween contest at the.
I bet you did, because you had Bill Tuttle just scribbling on your face on a Tuesday. Oh, that's
Just so you know.
amazing.
That was that year.
I can't remember what movie it was on, but
That's
it was
fine.
there. And it was
Oh,
like,
that's
oh
great.
my God.
Well, we've all had our moments.
Is
Have you ever been caught on camera?
Is that the same year where she was trying to get there?
Yes, and she's
Driving really fast.
driving and she had witch makeup on. Have you ever ruined a shot?
When hadn't I ruined a show?
Well, you know, when they used to, this is when I was a kid, they used to scrim the whole street, you know?
Mm-mm.
Well, those nets.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
and they had one
Yeah.
that was the whole street. And I was a kid, I was in school, my
Yeah.
cousin Rick and all, and they called the kids out. And we went running, and I was going to beat Rick, so I went around a building and I ran. And everybody shouted, "Stop, stop!" And I ran right to the school.
It was a Looney Tune adventure.
I mean, it was like a cartoon. Because there I was. And they had to reset all that stuff.
You know,
They had to
They
reset.
had to bring in the
They had to paint a whole
it was not as much fun as one would think. Okay, so
Okay, that's a rude shot.
nah,
We're now into the 1980s. It's a completely different ball game from the original studio system, and yet network television is alive and has been for a while and thriving.
you still had the movie of the weeks. Like every week there would be a new movie.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
remember the movie
Yeah.
of the week? The MOW rate.
Ooh, specialty rates.
Variety shows and everything else. In the late 1900s, after you married Phil Corey, who was our stepfather, an amazing man, he did special effects, so also keeping it in the business. You were able to make some changes in your career a little bit, didn't have to work as hard, didn't have to work as long, a couple things like that. And that's where you started in some of your TV stuff. You went to Moonlighting, Smokey Robinson Show, Tim Conway, some things like that. Did you enjoy that time when you got to take a little break and do a little bit more TV than film work?
I did love it. It was fun. Some of the live shows that we used to do.
Star Search.
It's amazing. Star Search was fun. It was a lot of fun. I liked the variety shows. Smokey Robinson was a great, fun show because every week we'd have a whole bunch of wigs and a whole bunch, you know, you go to a meeting, you got to have all this stuff on Thursday to film live, and you got to make quick changes and stuff. That was fun.
So what was
It
your
was a
schedule?
good time.
What was your schedule like for that? Because I know that you guys used to prep and then you used to shoot one night, right? Or did you shoot 2 nights?
Well, I think we did 2 shows sometimes.
Okay.
We do one with an audience. Audience would leave, and so we redo a show or something. We
Yeah.
did that sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I worked on like Sonny and Cher and all. You know, it was, but it was a fun thing. It was
Live TV
Oh, I
is
bet.
fun.
And the
Yeah.
creativity level of what you have to be willing to do and ready to accomplish.
We did one at NBC. I can't even think of the name of it. I can't even think of all the actors, but one of them was Gina Davis. She was brilliant because it was like we do these changes backstage as fast as we could do them. And it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. It's so creative, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons I like the creative idea of it, the thing that you could change these people really fast and do all this, and it was great.
And I mean, I would feel like you would take that creative, that the ability to create something quickly and fastly to your next thing when you actually started department heading a lot of big films and things like that, where you had to come up with things either are, you know, on the fly or things like that. You already had that base of where you were coming from.
See, one of the things I think that my idea was a little different than a lot of people's was that rather than do personals, I wanted to do the shows.
Yes.
And then sometimes when I did personals, I still did the shows because I liked the idea of the creative talk. Yeah, I mean, read the script, read
The consistency of being able to
Putting
create
it-
the entire show as opposed to one
and
look.
create the character with
Right.
the directors or
Mhm.
I liked that, the challenge.
Well, because at this time, or in the time period of the grand scheme of making film and television, in the 80s, you had more personals than ever before written into contracts. You had huge stars, the Bruce Willises, naming their people, and they were part of their deal. So you're saying that you liked department heading because you had the overall creative control of
That's right.
the film.
Well, then you really get into the show. Like
You're more invested because you are creating more than one character. And I think just because that's kind of how I felt about it. But I also think as a department head that gets to do all those things, you get to, the finished look is yours. And as a personal, your finished look is just that one person. And sometimes that one person, because of who they are, gets to make decisions that go kind of against what the director would really like to do. You see films and stuff today where it's a period film and a lot of the actresses still look very modern. And that's because they want to look very modern.
But you go back through Westerns.
TV in the 60s was TV in the 60s. It wasn't historically correct. It was just a show to entertain. Whereas
To sell
now
the
everybody
toothpaste.
wants to be historically correct and things like that. Even now, we're not always all the way there. But I think that a lot of actors and actresses that have the ability to have personals and to have things given to them make creative choices because they want to look better than if they got no makeup, they got no hair, they got, they're fuzzy, they're all over the place. And as a personal, sometimes you don't get any creative control at all.
No.
As a department head, you get to create everything. And like she said, you have the meetings with the producers and the directors and everything else, which is the fun part.
I agree.
It's the logistics of creating a character. And this is something you and I have talked a lot about.
It's the logistics of being able to put 150 people with wigs on a set.
In a couple of hours.
Like on Matrix, in the rain.
Yeah.
And they all got on wigs.
Right.
It's like you did it. And you still did it, the lead actor in the shot. The only trick people need to know is that you're only as good as your crew.
Absolutely.
You're only as good as the people you hire.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to let them do their thing.
Tell me about that family. Tell me about your film family. Who were the ones that stuck with you that were shoulder to shoulder? We've mentioned Larry, Paul Stanhope, Bill Tuttle. But who were the hair elements that you were working with?
Oh, there's so many good hair people.
I think Christina Smith would be a ride or die.
Well,
She's makeup, though.
Christine and I had great times. Not only did we see the world together, but we got to do very good stuff, with Steven, Mr. Spielberg, who I think is probably one of the greatest directors that I ever worked with.
I hope so.
He knew. He never missed a beat with us. He never, we got to go to dailies with him.
Yeah.
And we'd sit in dailies and talk about the third pirate from the left and the this and the that.
Wow.
And it was great. It was great working on some of those shows. And that was probably on Hook.
Who was your key on Hook? Was it Susan Schuler?
Yes. And Susan worked with me on several shows, and she was brilliant.
Yes.
She was brilliant. She did her thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you got to do. You got to let those people do their, Otherwise, if you try to do every hairstyle at the end, when the movie's put together, it looks like the same person designed all the hairstyles. You let your second and your third and those people come up with ideas. It only makes you look better.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say that her favorite key is probably me.
Hot takes here at the
Shots
No
fired.
NDB
Shots
podcast.
fired.
Kim Sant'Antonio.
Kim Sant'Antonio worked with my mom.
On she worked on Hook, and she was so good.
Mm-hmm. She still is.
She
She's
ran
really
all the
remarkable.
extras for me, and she was so good. She is good.
Yeah, she's very
She's very talented. Very talented. There were just so many.
Did you find them on location and then bring them with you, or were they
They were in the union. I did find one girl that I used on Matrix, Mia Cavero. And Mia was living in San Francisco. We did a lot of stuff up in Alameda
Sure.
on that, about 6 months worth. And I needed help, and she actually had come from Australia.
Wow.
She was from Finland, but she had gone to Australia. She had come in, and she could work in the U.S. And brought her over. I had a 2-bedroom apartment. She had a place to
We
stay.
call Mia the other daughter.
Yes.
My mom's favorite. Yeah. She just got a message from her the other day.
Oh, that's
But
great.
because she could work in Australia.
She's a really good hairdresser as well.
Oh, wow.
And she could make wigs. She could do all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought her over to work.
When you go to a local community, all those people want to do is good. All they want to do is their best work. And when you get to get boots on the ground and say, well, this isn't ideal. These aren't the products that we normally use, but what's the best we all can do right now with what we got? And
It was that way in Poland. I took in more supplies into Poland than you could get in any store because you just couldn't get them. You know, they weren't available. If we needed new clippers or something, we had to send somebody to Germany. They just
Didn't have them.
wasn't
It was soon after they got a little more independence. You also have to the question of did you find people and bring them back with you? That was still during the time of 706, and you work in Los Angeles. The industry was Los Angeles, Hollywood. So you would go on location, you would bring people with you.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really start hiring locals until I would say the late 90s, early 2000s, because at that point, states started doing the incentives, trying to pull the business away from California, Hollywood.
Sure, with few exceptions, like New Orleans had a film community, Miami had a film community
But still in the 90s, it wasn't huge.
No.
So it wasn't a matter of like you met this great hairdresser and they could just move with you because their days didn't work. It didn't work that way. And then when you started going to like Right to Word Steaks and stuff like that, where you got to hire people, locals and stuff, North Carolina, we got to meet a lot of people in North Carolina.
But the thing is that even like my husband's business was special effects, when we would go someplace, we were training
The people that took,
our replacements.
yeah. So we did that.
We did that.
But even in San
But that's
Francisco
okay.
was a different.
That's the way of the business.
Yeah.
It's an artisan craft, so you have to learn from the skilled hands of your.
It's that way in so many businesses.
San Francisco even had its own local union,
That's because it was theater
mostly theater. So when you went to San Francisco, you hired from them. You had to hire from them, but they couldn't necessarily come work in Los Angeles.
Right.
They could work there. So it was a weirder then, I feel like. Now with film being done in Atlanta, New Orleans, New York, it's a much different way of doing it and
Sure.
bringing people in.
The many different iterations of the unions and how they were to teamster each other over the decades is one subject that I find to be completely interesting because, we have such arcane rules in certain specific subjects. And how did that become that way? There's always a reason, as stupid as that reason might be.
Yeah.
I
Why do we do
did find
tents?
I did find that when we went places where there wasn't helping people, that the best place to go was the theater.
Yeah, because theater people
And,
across
yeah.
the board always.
And
that's what they do.
In New Orleans, I had two wonderful, wonderful locals on Blaze.
Mhm.
And they were great.
Mhm.
We had great times.
let's say now you are doing films. You are doing the big films. You're doing Hook and Schindler's and the second Jurassic Park. You're doing the big films. When you finally got that Hook or that Schindler's List or that film where you knew you were moving from this film to this film, when you knew you had made it, kind of, you were nominated for 2 Academy Awards. You're building things. What did that feel like compared to where you had started? Like, did you feel like I'm the little girl that didn't go to college and look at me now?
Well, I think I've had a fabulous, fabulous life.
Mm-hmm.
I went places that I would never have been able to go. I met people I would never have been able to meet.
Yeah.
And I made a good living
Yes.
because, I think our salaries are really quite good in the film business. It's been great.
Yeah.
I think maybe she was asking, you started out as a Gal Friday, and then you had Steven Spielberg asking your opinion. When did you really go, oh, I'm making art with these people shoulder to shoulder?
Well, when you're standing out there in the cold, shoulder to shoulder, it comes to realization when you've got an insert car, you got a director, you got actors in the back of a taxi, and they're going around the block and around the block, and you're 60-some years old standing out in a cold corner in downtown Los Angeles by yourself practically, and you're going, what am I thinking? But then you go home and you think, God, that was fun.
Yeah. You do.
And who can live like that?
Yeah.
I think
Studio
we all do.
workers,
We all do. We all have that feeling of I always joke that we can complain about our industry, but don't you complain about our
Yeah,
industry.
you're not allowed.
You're not allowed, but I'm going to bitch about it. But you don't come at me with it because we know it. We know it can be shit at times, but yet none of us would give that up.
Yeah, I love that it's still disappointing in new and different ways.
I know. I mean, one of Jack's favorite sayings is when you look at a call sheet, you need to look at the call sheet and go, how are they going to fuck us
How are they
today?
going to fuck us today?
Because we know they're coming for us
Every day.
every day. How is that going to work?
So as long as we block against that, we might be able
We're
to do
okay.
some art in the
Yeah.
This
meantime.
is when it gets you, like on Schindler's List, and we had all these families, Christina and I had like 2 hairdressers, and she had 2 makeup artists, and we had all these people every day, and we would do them by families, and we'd ask Stephen, what families do you need first? Because they're the ones we're going to do first. And but we got through every day.
You did.
Except, one day we pulled up on the set and 1,000 people were wrong.
Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun.
But we just took and put scarves on them. Said, that's the way it is.
Well, you changed the cast to match the background.
Yes.
Instead of changing the 1,000 background to match the cast, which was what was supposed to be happening, she changed the cast to match the background, which is something you have to do sometimes. Most of her crew and stuff couldn't speak English, so you had translators, and things get lost in translation.
Make our day. We still have to make our day.
Yes, you do.
I had the most wonderful young man named Marouche.
He's a
who
barber.
Was a barber. And he did so many cuts for me, I cannot tell you. And he was so good. And by the time we finished in Poland, Marouche could speak English.
He taught himself English. Isn't that awesome?
I mean,
And their interpreter was stolen by Steven because she was so good. So the hair and makeup interpreter was like, Steven's like, no, I want you.
yeah.
And he took her. So she was directing all the crowds and everything else.
It's got everything so well thought out. And he's going to be like, oh, a competent woman?
Yeah.
You're coming
You're
with
coming
me.
with me.
Let's go.
You're coming with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a fantastic life that we get to live.
Now we come to the point where I wanted to ask you, this entire time you were a mother.
there wasn't a time where you were in this business where you weren't a mother, aside from when you were a child, growing up in that what we call the film carny life.
Yes.
What was it like? What was the most challenging and what was the most rewarding thing as a woman and a mother in this film business?
Well, as a mother, you're gone from your kids a lot. But I got to have long times with my kids. I could take off a whole summer and go someplace with my kids. We could go on trips together between shows.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of stuff. We went a lot of places. And so in one way, I missed being with them when I wasn't. It was terribly hard.
There's no FaceTime.
No.
There was nothing. There were no phones. There were no.
You had to wait till you got
We
home.
were doing all that.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about that earlier.
Mhm.
That we didn't used to. When I was working, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers.
Mhm.
We didn't. You know, we got paper call sheets under the door at the hotel. You talk to your kids on the telephone
Sundays
If
were a
you-
big day, or
if you could,
Mhm.
because if you're 3 hours away, sometimes that's hard to do.
Sure.
And you know, and it's even the same when you're home and working, because you work long hours in this business. Anybody that thinks it's a walk in the park, it's a hard job.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that makes it hard is you have to be able, even though you're sitting around a lot, you have to be able to get up and move and come to the party like that.
Mhm.
So, but when you get home, you're tired, you're not in the mood. But I think that time that I did have with them kind of made up for that somewhat.
Oh, sure.
You know, there were between shows, or when I was working on live TV and stuff, I was working 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week, but we were still working 12, 14-hour days.
Sure.
But so in some ways, I always felt a little guilty. But, you know, there were things you miss because you don't take off.
Back then, you didn't
You
even
can't
take off
take
if
off.
you were sick.
No.
No.
COVID changed all that, but
Yeah. No, I mean, I spent one show where I had pneumonia, and I stayed in my room at Universal and did my cast every day.
Mhm.
And somebody watched them on the set.
Mhm.
But I stayed there in case they needed something. No, you didn't have a choice.
I think that we actually were really lucky because we got to do extraordinary things as kids.
Mhm.
We got to go extraordinary places and be a part of something special.
This is the thing that I've tried to share with my children and with our family, because I can't be there all the time, but the time that I can be there, wow, we get to do the best stuff. And
Yeah.
it's not just I have to be here and we have to do these things because I'm a 9-to-5 dad. And
And the 9-to-5 dad may get to have a little there. Let's be honest, there really isn't such a thing. And you come home and you're still tired and you're still doing those things. But on the weekend, you have 2 days and you only get a week off every year and you only get these things. So there is a give and take with it. But, there was always a sense of, I never felt like I was missing out.
Mhm.
I never felt like I didn't have the parents or
all
anything.
the boxes were checked and the needs were met. And that changed when Phil came into your life, right? And
It did make a big difference
Mhm.
because I had 3 children and I was struggling.
Mhm.
So every time a show finished or something, you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen now?
because we're out of that studio system where just report to work and you're
Yeah.
going to do something.
Yeah.
Now it's, I have
Finding
to get my
our own
next
jobs.
project.
Mhm.
And this is before the days where the talent agents were being agents for
Oh,
hair
yeah, we
and
didn't have-
makeup.
Yeah.
Right.
Makeup
No,
and
yeah,
hair
yeah.
agents.
So you had
I
to
think
hustle
only
for your
about
job.
the last 5 years of my
Yeah.
working time did I have
Mhm.
an agent.
Yeah, you had to hustle for your job. You had to make those contacts, but you also worked for the same UPMs. You made relationships with producers, and back then you stayed with them.
That was
you
your
would work with them,
network,
yeah,
yeah.
because everybody was staying in the same place. They weren't going other places to work and things like that. Would you have changed anything to make it easier, or would you have? I can't imagine you doing anything different.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because what I did, some stuff I suppose was selfish of me to do. But
what do you think was selfish of you to do?
I went to Australia for a year.
Yeah, but we got to go for a month. We got to take a trip to Australia and go all over the place. It was maybe selfish because of Phil, but I didn't. Did you feel like it was?
That's a flat business.
I know.
Okay, so
But I can see where you would think that, but I also felt like you having your own space sometimes was
But-
probably a really good thing.
But when I was in Australia, pretty much, you guys were out of the house.
Yeah, I was married.
I didn't start taking long vacations. So yeah, Phil maybe, but he came over there.
Oh, yeah.
I came home twice.
Yeah.
sure.
We had a Christmas vacation and another vacation.
And we used to email. That's how we used to talk because you could email.
That's
'cause-
so good.
Isn't that
I mean,
weird?
It was
Right.
a little bitty machine I had
yeah.
that we used. I don't even know what they were called then.
And then when you finally made your choice, I'm going to retire from the film business. Looking back on it, through the lens of what you were able to accomplish as a woman, when they wouldn't let you hardly in the door, or once they did, they still put you in your corner, to being the department head and the one who knew the most about this crazy job that we have. What would you do over again?
Well, I think one thing that bothered me was the fact that for most of the time, makeup artists made a lot more money than the hairdressers. And I asked about it one time. I asked a makeup man, and why? And they said, well, because men are head of the family. And at that time, I was the head of the family and I had 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's when I started the idea of thinking that, and actually Christina is the one that really helped me with that. Because
The idea
she
of
would go in and
Negotiating
say,
your rate.
favored nation.
negotiate, she'd say, hairdresser makes what I make.
I did not know that, but that's cool. Mhm.
And that's when I was working with her is when, and that was like on Hook and like on those shows that my,
So even all the way up until that point,
Oh, yeah.
it was a different rate. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
but it was a different rate for a long time until we got to, and then I started doing some personals and then I could, but I
Negotiate your
usually
rate.
say I won't make less than the makeup.
Yeah.
And I did say on Matrix that no hairdresser could come in and make more than me.
So no personals could come in because there were some personals on that show. Could come in and make more than the head department head.
And so there was one girl that came in that wanted a fortune. And I said to him, hey, it's in my contract. Pay her.
Pay me too.
But then I get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Which is something we should think about.
But yeah, so that worked out. As you move along, you start learning some of these things. Like on Schindler's List, we got a bonus. We gave up some of our salary.
They made a deal with the UPM at the time that they would work for less.
Stephen.
And Steven, they would work for less, but if Schindler's did well,
They would get the bonus at the back end.
And we did. The day it turned over, we got our checks.
Wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful.
So
But that's just a really good person on the other side of
and
that,
that's-
making sure that happens.
That's the thing that people don't understand is when they're collective bargaining, they're bargaining for the basement. You can't
The base
go
rate, yeah.
underneath. You can't treat anybody more poorly than what
Right.
we've just agreed on right now. But there's no saying that we can't go
Go up.
above and beyond.
Yeah.
Everything's negotiable, and they're always going to try to not negotiate
Oh,
at
yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But
They'll come up with all kinds of things. But as I moved along, I also learned a lot about production.
Yeah.
And I understood sometimes why we weren't getting this, or we wouldn't get that, or why we wouldn't turn that in, or why we wouldn't. It comes back.
She's pro production. We've talked about this as well.
I was a very pro production
sure,
hairdresser.
sure.
And I am too. I believe that I am as well. But I'm a pro production, but I don't let you treat my crew badly.
No,
You have to be fair with your stuff. But I will help you. Again, we come back to the NDBs, but I will help you with some things.
Mm-hmm.
But other things, I won't let you cross lines and stuff. But I will get your stuff done.
Well, this has just been so amazing. We have a segment on No NDB where we like to ask a couple of questions. What's your favorite breakfast order on set? What was your breakfast of choice?
we used to only get coffee and donuts. So when they brought in those food trucks,
Yeah.
it was pretty darn good.
I bet.
Although I have to admit, at Universal, when they put in that big makeup department at the top of the hill with the red doors, we had a kitchen.
Oh, but
And
when
we
you
actually had somebody in the kitchen that would cook us eggs and stuff.
wow, I did not
They
know
couldn't
that.
cook bacon because they thought it smelled up the department too much.
Sure.
Interesting.
But there was things that they could do. And we did get that. What would I order? I don't know.
That's a great answer. I'm going to
No,
go
that's
with coffee
fine.
and donuts.
Coffee and donuts
And then the do-it-yourself chef in the corner.
in the makeup
Um,
department.
So at lunch,
Are you a eat lunch person, work through lunch, or nap?
Oh, I generally take a 30-minute nap. Absolutely.
Samesies.
You know,
Yeah.
you got that craft service table the rest of the day.
Mhm. Oh yeah, no, and sometimes that's the only food.
I know.
What's your biggest mistake you've ever made?
Other than breaking through a wall.
You mean in the motion picture business or just in
no,
life?
No, in the motion picture business, something that you did at work was your biggest mistake.
Probably put a part in the wrong place or someplace.
I love it. I love it. Uh-oh.
I actually had some of that with Keanu.
Yeah.
He said, Judy, isn't my hair going the other way yesterday?
I don't
I said, I don't think so, Keanu. He said, I think it was.
So polite.
So polite.
I loved
Very
him.
gentleman.
I loved him.
Yeah.
I love most of my actors. But,
Did they ever play music in the trailer? And what's your favorite music?
oh, we played all kinds of music.
What was your
Well,
favorite though?
When I was working with Keanu, I had a little thing that went, they were kung fu fighting.
That's great.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember that toy.
We used to listen to everything.
Worst show you were ever a part of?
Worst show because it was bad, or worst show because it didn't make any money?
Oh,
So,
I've had both of them. Worst show.
What was a show that was just bad? Like every day just sucked.
Well, there were times on a lot of shows that was the fact.
I'm sure there were shows where you didn't like the actor, or
Well, there was
the
one
director
show,
was an
but I
idiot.
can't remember the name, but I can remember the actress
I know, and I don't. You can't.
that I worked with, and I'm not
No.
using names, but I had so much trouble with that actress. I wanted to cut my throat. And then about 3 years later, my boss, Larry Germain, called me in his office, and he said, I want you to do this show with ta-da. And I said, you gotta be me.
what did Larry Germain say?
Larry Germain said, no, I really want you to do this. And do you know that we became the best of friends?
Well, I don't think it's bad to say the name then if you're not going to say.
We became the
Don't hit
very
the
best of friends.
Is it still alive?
Who was it?
Haley Mills, her sister, Juliet Mills.
Juliet Mills.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Those
that's
Interesting.
great.
And we became friends. And she used to bring her kid to the motorcycle races
Okay.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What is your favorite crafty snack? Your favorite crafty snack?
I don't know. We had this guy that made the best soup. What was that
Yeah.
show on?
I don't know if it was Small Soldiers. I think it was Small Soldiers. Or it was, I think it was Small
Oh,
Soldiers.
mid 90s, legendary crafty.
Oh, wow. We had
Legendary
soups
craft.
and,
We
Yeah.
wanted to make a movie about craft service.
I-
I think it would have been fabulous.
like a crew, the craft
Don't
service
you
crew.
think that would be
Absolutely.
fabulous?
So if anybody
Absolutely.
wants to do that, just let us know.
Yeah. We'll workshop it for you.
Yeah.
We'll workshop it for you.
We've got that one for you. Okay, one last question. What do you think was your biggest victory? Your biggest moment that you are extremely proud of?
I had a lot of them.
What was the first thing that came to mind?
The Academy Awards,
The nominations.
nominations.
And they were
If you're speaking of the motion picture business.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the Schindler's List nomination was very important to me. It was very exciting. Number one, it was the first time a hairdresser was recognized.
Yeah.
I mean,
And because I should have been recognized the year before for Hook,
Yeah. But,
or a couple years,
mhm.
For
that wasn't standard.
because they didn't
No,
get
Christina
anything.
Smith was nominated for makeup, but there was no
They
hair
didn't-
department.
There's no hair department. And so that was really
That was a
very
remarkable movie.
exciting.
You guys
that was
did.
really good.
You guys did a lot of really cool things.
the string of movies that you got to do in there. I mean, Forrest Gump,
Yeah.
Hook, Schindler's List,
To giggles.
Yeah, all
There's
of
so
the
many.
things.
There's so many.
It's just a really bad horror movie that my mom did because they were all friends with the UPM. So they all went to, where were you in Oregon?
Portland.
Oregon, and they all went and worked on Dr. Giggles
Because why wouldn't you?
because they all got to go on location with their friends.
Well,
But it all went on. We had a big neon sign that was in the makeup trailer window, and then it would say, "The doctor is insane."
we have to do this again.
I know.
We have to-
We have-
there will be
so
a
many more
part.
stories.
There will
So
be
many
a
more
part
stories.
2. Thank you, Judy, so much for being here. And
It was my pleasure. I got hundreds of stories.
We know.
And
We know.
people say to me, "Why don't you write a book?" How could you write a book? Number one, you get sued.
You can't name names, but we've done that.
Yeah,
Well, thank you,
because
Mom.
they just kind of
Okay, I'll come back.
come out.
You've been listening to No NDB Podcast, Tales from the Trailer.
My mom is amazing, and she has done amazing things and has allowed me to do amazing things because of it.
Yeah, we had such a blast interviewing her. We have enough to do a second episode with just Judy alone. So please look forward to that. And we might actually sit down with her again.
I think we're going to have to sit down with her again, and I really want to do something with her and Christina. Thank you for joining us today on the No NDB podcast. Like, subscribe.
Yeah, do the follows and the things.